Hi, welcome everyone. So I also have been teaching within TDSB for over 25 years now. But as well, I've been working part-time as a music therapist in varied settings. Currently, for TDSB, I'm also working with ECPP, Education and Community Partnership Programs, which is supporting different agencies. And I'm at Sick Kids, supporting students with medical needs, but I'm supporting them with their academic programming. I'm also a parent. We were just talking earlier as we were getting going. I just dropped off my grade 10 son at his band practice, and my grade 12 daughter is downstairs looking into universities. So that's where I'm at as a parent, and then as well my background as an educator. So as we get started, I'm going to read our land acknowledgement, and I encourage you to reflect on past and ongoing systemic oppression of Indigenous peoples and consider what actions and steps you are taking as a part of reconciliation. So we acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Thank you. So when we look at our community norms, we've already changed some of them. We did ask that, typically having the mic and camera off to not overwhelm the bandwidth, but I think we're okay. We've got a nice small group here. So that might ebb and flow. We'll see how our connectivity works today. As we explore the topic of mental health and well-being, we also ask you to be aware that amongst our participants, there might be different entry points for this discussion. And so we ask that you model empathy towards one another and engage without judgment, with an open mind. And we also hope that you will find some new ideas to explore. You can see too, we can use the chat pod, and certainly for those of you who need to use that because of not having a microphone, but others I think today will likely be able to use microphones as well. So we'll see how things proceed as we go along. Okay.
My mic's off. Okay, this is where we are going to encourage everyone to use the chat pod. If everyone doesn't mind taking just a second, we could see your names, but just maybe let us know, are you a parent? Are you a professional? Are you a professional and a parent? And what maybe you're hoping on getting out of this session. Again, we are here for a conversation, so we hope that everyone can find something they can take with them today. And also, we're all here for resources to each other. So we're all in this parenting business together and raising this next generation together. So we want to encourage you guys to share and chat whatever you're comfortable with, so that we can be there for each other and have a rich, meaningful conversation for everybody. So. That's awesome. We've got some teenagers. We've got some younger. Oh, that's a good Shelley right across the board there. We got a little bit of everybody. That's fantastic. Grade 10, grade 11, first year university. Oh, we're making it. And we have lots of different kinds of kids that we are supporting. All our kids are individual, and we just love them for every aspect. Awesome. Welcome, Dan. Parent of, is that a parent of 22, a 22-year-old or 22 children? That would be something else too. Then you could give this presentation. That's great. 2 of them. That's fantastic. Great. And so awesome. So with that, keep sharing. We're going to keep going though. And we're all working together here. Jody.
It is great to have some diversity in the age ranges, and so we'll have some really lovely conversations. So you can see our agenda here for today's session. We will begin with an overview of mental health. And then we're going to move into what the school day may entail for our children, the potential challenges and stressors that they might have faced during their day. And then how can we support them? What resources are available to families, to parents and caregivers? And so with that said, I think we're ready to begin.
All right. I feel like a conductor with all my computer screens. Here we go. So what is mental health? We wanted to take a moment and just look at some of the language we'll be using today so that we're all on the same page. And if anybody has any questions or any other views, please put them in the chat. But we're going to talk about where Jody and I are coming from today and the vocabulary that we're starting from anyway. So mental health. So mental health is not mental illness. They're not equal. We acknowledge everyone's coming from a different place with their understanding of mental health and mental illness. And sometimes in media, sometimes in conversations, these two words get used interchangeably. We are separating these two words when we talk today. So mental illness or mental health, sorry, again already right off the bat, but we're going to take a moment. Mental health is our ability to enjoy life, to reach our goals, to be able to cope with life's aspects and life's variables. And it also can include your spiritual and emotional well-being as well. So this is what we're going through and walking through every day. Mental illness is a condition of your thinking, mood, behavior that impacts the function of our life. So it's a very broad definition, but it does encompass a lot of different mental illnesses. So those are kind of the difference, but we're going to be talking mostly about mental health today. Oh, there we go. I have some examples of mental illness: anxiety, depression, mood disorders, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, eating disorders, schizophrenia. Lots of these you may have heard or be having a part of your life in a different way. So that is the distinguishing way we're looking at those two words today. This diagram I need to share because it's something that I saw. This is from ChemH. And changed my understanding of mental health and mental illness immensely. And the way that it was taught to me was that mental health and mental illness are on two different spectrums, and we all fall somewhere on these spectrums, and it'll change day by day, as it will for our children and the students that we work with, and people in our life as well. So, mental health is kind of on one, I'm going to use my hands when I speak, on one spectrum, and mental illness is on another, and they kind of intersect. And you could be anywhere on this plane. So for example, you can have someone who has poor mental health without any mental illness. An example would be someone who's extremely stressed out. They don't have any mental illness per se, but they might kind of sit lower on this spectrum or this plane that day because they're maybe there's loss of a loved one, maybe COVID, maybe something's going on for them. So we could think of how we ourselves or how people we know and love may look, might need support, might be coping when they're in that situation. And kind of on the other side of this plane or spectrum, you might have someone who has very good mental health that day. And they're also living with a mental illness. For example, they have been diagnosed, but they are also working with their doctors. They have their coping strategies. They might be taking a prescription. They might be just having a really good day that day, had a really good sleep. And so, someone who could be interchangeably with these two scenarios at any point in time. And we're just very aware that this can change moment to moment. This can change day to day, month to month, year to year. And just having that in mind when we're talking about mental health.
Okay, great. So this next slide is, shows some data from the CMHO. That's a Children's Mental Health Ontario organization. And I just put the link in the chat. You can see the data is very telling. 1 in 5 children and youth in Ontario will experience some form of mental health problem. 5 out of 6 of those kids will not receive the treatment they need. So it is very telling. I encourage you to also use that link, because some of the other data that it shares, 1 out of every 2 Ontario parents report having had concerns about their child's level of anxiety. 1 out of every 2. 1 out of every 3 Ontario parents have had a child miss school due to anxiety. So it is certainly very concerning. And of course, we know that the current shifting and changing of their school programming exacerbates the prevalence of mental health in children and youth. So it's an important topic that we're pursuing today. Our next one is looking at the hierarchy that Maslow created. So some of you might be familiar with that. It is well understood that if a student's basic needs aren't being met, then learning can be a very real challenge. So the examples of moving from the basic needs of shelter, safety, and security, and then onto psychological needs. So it's evident that our students' mental health needs must be met in order to support their academic achievement and to help them reach their full potential. Okay.
So right now, before we kind of get into some, I guess we call them case studies, we're going to talk about a couple of students' perspectives in a minute. And what that looks like. We thought we would just kind of get all of our juices flowing as far as what strategies are we currently using before we kind of talk about some other strategies that you might want to or might already be using. So that would be really great. If anybody wants to either chat inside, I think maybe we'll keep it in the chat so we don't have to worry about people's mics cutting off, which, oh man, I wish this was in person. It does change how we share things. But if anybody wants to talk about any kind of strategies that they're already using at home to support their child's or their own mental health, again, whenever you feel comfortable sharing. We'll play ping pong. That's phenomenal. We actually have a ping pong table at the hospital that the kids get to play. It's great. Mm-hmm. Not worrying about anything else when a ball's flying at your head. That's great.
A copy of this beautiful slide. So those two, Shelley, the links I can put into the chat of where these 2 pictures were sourced. So I'll do that just as you guys are going through some of your ideas. And as Andrea said, it may be strategies that you're employing at home, but it also might be ideas that you're just exploring or considering.
Forgot about, and you did, and then you forgot about it, and you're like, oh yeah. Which is great. So Jody, while you're clicking and sharing those resources, I realized that we don't have a bit.ly for this presentation. So if we could share a view only copy of this link as well, that would be great. So time together in nature, I love that. Jody and I are both campers too. We love our tree bathing, which is now the trendy thing to call it, but walks. That's great. Gladys, we're walking. I agree. Talking about feelings and worries, that's great. Just going through some of these. Working with your primary doctor, that's great. And talking about that, okay. Finding a unicorn, isn't it? So, I mean, we could talk about that. We could, it's, I'm seeing a lot of challenges that we're sharing too. And I think and if you're comfortable sharing with some of the things that we're needing to talk to other parents about. I think that's one reason why we're all here. So that's great.
Mhm.
Keep on sharing. I think we're going to go right into our next slide. And this one, I just thought this was a really great picture of kind of what, if you took all those words out, and if I had this original shot, I would have loved to just bring in those words around the student. It's a little bit of, you see a kid at school, but then you kind of see all these other thoughts in their head. But what Jody and I kind of wished, Jody actually brought up, I'm going to give her all the credit because she's brilliant, was if we had the same picture, and maybe I'll have to play with it, Jody, and do that another time, is the other words that would be coming in, that could be coming in. This is just our projection on the student sitting at this desk, but the other thought captions could be, I'm rocking it. I'm ready to nail this test. I can't wait for extracurriculars today, so I'm going to finish my homework quickly so I can do my cross country run, whatever it is. It could be tons of stuff. First day of school, here I go. We don't know. So that kind of leads us into looking at different perspectives today, and thinking about it. So I just wanted to put that image out there, and that kind of time to take a question or a breath to take a different perspective on this picture as well. All right, so I'm going to start with our first case study of little Andy. That could be little Andy sitting right there, who is a kindergarten student, SK. This year, we're just going to go with a non-COVID year, but we could go ahead and throw that on. Super excited about school. Loves going, loves seeing their friends, but still getting used to sitting down for long periods of time. Andy likes to run around outside. Andy has toys all over their house in different stations because he's always playing, and now is really struggling with sitting down and listening to the teacher for a long period of time and paying attention, because Andy's friends are also sitting on the carpet and made a funny joke and really likes, the other kids' t-shirts, and, listening, doing their best to listen to the information the teacher is saying. And all the kids suddenly got up to go do something, and Andy missed the instruction. Really trying, but kind of missed it. So Andy jumps up and goes and tries to do what the teachers asked him to do, but didn't quite get it. Andy sometimes gets in trouble for that. Weren't you listening to the instruction? And that's really tricky. Also, they talked about that there's going to be this a school assembly today. What's a school assembly? That sounds really exciting. So, dealing with that information. Andy also is, can't wait for recess, but guess what? It's raining today and there's indoor recess. What does that look like? Was really looking forward to playing tag at recess. And when Andy does try to learn, notices that the teacher has lots of information and lots of resources in the room. And it's a lot for Andy to take in. Andy just has, it's just Andy at home. Mom's expecting a little brother or sister. And so when Andy comes to school, there are, over 20 kids sitting in the class. This is a lot for them to deal with. And, sometimes Mrs. Mom, even though this is SK, also could be in grade 1. Mrs. Mom when they're at school, because lots of things are going on, and when they're sad they want a hug. So lots of things are going on. Needless to say, when Andy comes home, he's exhausted. Sometimes is acting out, getting frustrated, refusing to do chores, and is really exhausted. So even just telling the story, I feel exhausted, and just really understanding the overwhelming day that Andy has. And this is very much a typical kindergarten, JK, grade 1, grade 2, maybe grade 3 kiddo that we teach every day, and what it kind of looks like at home and at school anyway. So we're thinking, how do we help Andy when Andy goes home? That was a busy day. busy day, lots of stuff going on. So the first one, and I'll have to go up in the chat to see who already talked about talking about emotions, is this is one strategy. And again, a strategy that you could use, you could have used, we could have forgotten about using, but a good reminder to talk to your children about emotions. You know, at a young age, they can be very, very simplified, mad, sad, happy. Or we could get into really cool words like frustrated or exhausted, and, you know, able to navigate those words and talk about what they are, and it's okay. And it's normal to feel all those different emotions. And you can either give an example yourself, you know, kind of point out to your child that there's different options. You know, that angry may not be angry. It actually might be frustrated. It actually might just be exhausted. I will share the tidbit that my daughter used to just say, "Mama, I'm eggs." When she was in kindergarten, "Mama, I'm eggs." I'm like, "What's eggs?" She goes, "I'm so exhausted." I'm like, "You're so exhausted, you can't even finish the word exhausted. That's awesome." But, you know, having them identify that emotions and feelings come and go, and they're all within normal of the human experience, and just giving them the language to use and share with that. And even, I know we have lots of parents here who are have children who are older, and you think, well, maybe they know it all. They know it all. We know our kids, they know it all. But there's words that, you know, we even have to get in the habit of using a variety of words. It's not just mad. There's lots of other things. Scared, curious, you know, there's lots of different things. So it's always just a good reminder to use different emotion words sometimes. I'm sorry, I'm pressing controls on the wrong computer. And the other example, and a lot of people here too are already rocking this one, is caring for your mental health like your physical health, and remembering that it's something that we need to do daily. It's just like we make sure we go for walks. This is also something that we want to put in practice daily. So taking care of our physical health definitely does take care of our mental health, but also that reminder of we need to do something every day, just like we hopefully eat healthy every day. Hopefully we are exercising every day, and we know how those two, sleeping well every day, you know, practicing good hygiene, those are all physical health things that we do that do very much impact our mental health. But those are all things that we should do every day or when they're needed. And also what mental health practices, those all can be things that we're doing for our mental health, but what other mental health practices are we doing every day, frequently? We're upping when we need to, and just remembering that it's an everyday maintenance. I think that's why we chose the word maintenance in our presentation today. So those are two strategies that we would do with Andy. We would have those conversations about emotions, and we would also encourage them to do something for themselves to help them with their daily load.
Thanks, Andrea. When you were talking about naming the emotions, it reminded me back to my training for music therapy, when I learned about the theory of emotions, where it's based on whatever emotion they're having. It is either rooted in either joy or fear. So just as a caregiver, recognizing that if they are seemingly angry, it could be based in fear. And so just putting that connection to that it's not as simple as anger. They're most likely afraid of something that's happening, and they're processing that emotion. Okay, so on to Sufiana. So Sufiana, also known as Sufi, is in grade 5, and she has conflicting feelings about school. She loves to read and she loves to learn, but as an introverted girl, she doesn't want to stand out, and so her school day can be very overwhelming. So here's a snapshot of what one of Sufi's school days. Sufi was particularly nervous on this morning, more than usual on this one school morning, because there was going to be tryouts for the girls' soccer team after school. Now it's after school, but it's a part of her whole day because she's thinking about it. But even as she's arriving to school, Sufi is mentally sorting through her own sort of Rolodex of phrases that she might use when approaching her classmates. Because while she has some friends, she still finds it difficult to navigate the social scene at school. So she actually uses scripted phrases to help her. Like, oh, I can't wait for the weekend. I'm going to the movies. What about you? So this is actually something that Sufi has rehearsed because in the moment she can't always think of what to say. So as she arrives at school, she's going through this process. And then she enters the school and she realizes that there is a supply teacher. And she's already wondering if this teacher will be able to pronounce her name properly. This time, luckily, he does. Then you fast forward a little bit in her day during language class. So during language class, Sufi often does origami in her desk while teachers are giving their lessons. Normally, the homeroom teacher allows that because she knows that Sufi is listening at the same time. She's often sketching, doing origami, but the supply teacher wasn't too pleased. So it's just one more thing that's impacting her day. And while she doesn't have difficulty understanding concepts that are being taught, she does always have to think through how she's going to participate. Again, that social element. And then you think, let's go to recess. You think that that's a time of day where the students have a break, but it's also a time that maybe could be for high anxiety for some of these students. So for Sufi, other girls were talking about a sleepover that they're having, and she knows that she's not a part of that. And this isn't a situation where these students are bullying, but she's aware of other things that are happening around her. Or at lunch, a number of the students are on their phones. Sufi's in grade 5, she doesn't have a phone yet. She's not on social media yet. And then, of course, after school, she has the tryouts. And even though she knows the girls around her, none of her close friends happen to be trying out. So any one of these things in Sufi's day, in isolation, might be manageable on a good day, or even a challenge if she's had a bad sleep, which happens to kids. We know that happens to us. But then when you take all of those things into consideration, they can easily accumulate to a very challenging day. So as educators and parents and guardians, we have to be aware of these many contributing factors at this age. There are other factors, puberty, body changes, just to name one. And all of these can be a very overwhelming, and it's an overwhelming time for children when these are happening. So if we think about some strategies, the first one we have listed here. So this one's an interesting one to me. Listen to your children, talk to your children. In fact, I think it's very important that we recognize that children need to choose the timing. After school, they may still be overwhelmed or as Andrea's daughter might say, exhausted. And it's not necessarily a sign that they're unwilling. It's just not the right timing. So they've had their day of academics, but they have had a whole day of interactions nonstop without any break. So we have to remember how social their day is, and then so give them some space. Also, this slide, yes, definitely talk to your children, but listen, and sometimes that might be what they need. Or if you're engaging in beyond the listening, instead of giving advice, asking them what strategies they might use so they can think through and start being a little bit more independent before we feed them the answers. Let them start to sort through, oh, maybe when they're not in the moment, they have time to reflect and say, maybe next time. Also, when we think about resources, in Sufi's case, her mom did buy her a specific book. It's called Knowing What to Say, Finding the Right Words. I believe it's a Smart Girl's Guide. And so it actually gives very specific phrases that Sufi and other children can explore. One of the examples that was, if a friend takes something the wrong way, it's actually scripted. Hold on, I didn't mean that way. Can you please hear me out? And so when they're caught in a situation, they have some words that they can fall back on if it's not coming innately to them. So another strategy, teaching compassion and empathy. We know how important this is. And thinking about empathy, many adults can relate to these feelings that they have from when they were growing up, but also that we may still have when we are in social settings. So empathize with our children for what their day may have been like, being careful not to transfer any of your own ideas and your memories from when you were young as well. But also patience. They're still learning. And we have students, we're talking about students of all ages, your children of all ages, as we look through the chat, young and approaching university age, but they're still learning. All of them are. And especially those in high school, because they are exploring new social dynamics, many new decisions as they go about their day. So really having some understanding of all these new experiences that they are trying to navigate, and they need to know that you support them and accept them and love them all throughout these new experiences. On to Max.
Awesome. Jody, just a couple of things on that one. Spiri on the side there is talking about that yes, timing is helpful, and getting conversation. When you say, let's talk and listen to our children, but when, how is your school date? Fine. What'd you do? Nothing. It's hard. I call myself like Dr. Mama sometimes, when you're like pulling teeth, getting that stuff out. So it is really kind of, and I think it changes with kiddos too, where and how and timing when you ask questions. There are different lists. We found one at one point. I think we posted it somewhere in our house, and I don't know where that one is now, but ways to ask different questions about kids' days where the answer isn't fine, same, nothing, all that kind of stuff. So things like, what did something that made you laugh today? That's my daughter's favorite one. Who did you hang out with today at lunch? High school students are doing that again. And all just a little bit things like, what was one thing you learned today that you didn't know? And we'll get to one of the strategies coming up about what you can do as a parent, but just different questions you can ask is a big thing. I find driving in the car is a fantastic time to have conversations. It's they can't jump out, so that's going to happen. But there's something about not facing each other that I've heard other child and youth therapists. I have a therapist that I work with who often will take the kids to go play basketball, and as they're shooting hoops, the conversations that come out are so different than if they just pulled them into a room and sat them on a chair and said, tell me what's going on. So it's fine knowing and finding your kids. Walks are great for that. We had a lot of walkers here in the group. So walks are great for that. So it's just finding the right time and being sensitive to it too, that if they don't want to talk about it now, it doesn't matter how many times you kind of, probe the conversation, then you need to walk away. And we're all like that. We all have our sensitive moments of things that we want to talk about, and when we're kind of, on edge about a conversation. So, there's lots of different ways to go about it, but don't give up. I think we just are encouraging you to try all different kinds of different things. I also use, this is just my own strategy, a certain playlist for car rides when I know conversations need to happen. There's certain lyrics and words that I play with. Tons of strategies. But parents, please, on the side, let's keep the conversation going. We have one more case study, and we want to make sure that we fit it all in today. So we will keep talking, but please, if people are asking questions inside and you have some insight and you want to share it, it's up to you. Totally, you're welcome. So this is Max. Sorry, Jody, you did pop your mic on. Did you want to say anything about Suki or timing or conversation?
I was just going to mention, because when Spiri was talking about, the timing, one last thought. When we think about timing, after school, they might be exhausted. Before bed, they want to go to sleep. For some kids, it's early in the morning, and it may not be the best timing for the parent and guardians. However, it might be the best time for the kid, and maybe your child, there's only one down there for breakfast at the time. But really exploring different times of the day to see what might work for each child. That was it.
Yep. No, and you know what? No, thank you. And you said a golden word, which I apologize for not acknowledging earlier, was guardian. Also, the different people that are raising the next generation. And I kind of mentioned, I sound very Star Trekky there. But talking to the children in our lives about the other adults that they can talk to as well. Sometimes it's a conversation they may not want to have with you for some reason, but just reminding them like, oh, cool, you had a hard day, cool, I'm here for you, but dad is, uncle is, auntie, grandma, grandpa, reminding them that they can talk to anybody about anything that they need to, but just reminding them that, which I think is really gold, because that kind of comes to our next story. So nice, beautiful segue. We've got Max. Max identifies with the pronouns they, them, is in grade 11, and loves high school, loves going to it. It's been, hasn't always been easy. Max is dealing with some ADD, ADHD, not sure. Doctors keep going back and forth. All they know is that school's been, they have to work really hard at school. Sometimes feels like they work harder at school than their peers. Getting their assignments in on time and knowing, they're juggling their class schedule, the changing, recently they've rearranged what high school looks like so many times. So adjusting to that, prioritizing when assignments need to be done, getting them done on time, doing the best they can, showing up where they need to be, clicking on the links where they need to go, and just dealing with all fun things that is just high school schedules in general. So dealing with that, has a great group of friends that support and sees who they are. Fortunately, does need to remind their math teacher on a regular basis that they prefer them, they, their pronouns. On a whole, school is supportive of how they identify, which is great, but just again, another aspect of their daily life. And their grades, they're really concerned about grades. Grade 11, know that next year is final year. The conversation of university, college, career, what are they calling it? A gap year. Talking about, they all different names for a fifth year of high school. I can't remember what the kids are calling it these days, bonus lap, or, finishing that. Do I do night school, summer school? Are my grades good enough? Do I need to take that course before I apply for something? Do I even want to apply? It's all those regular things that they're carrying through the day. And really, and this is kind of comes to the last strategy, was not knowing who to ask for which part of the help. They're kind of juggling all the stuff with school and they not sure where to go. So that's our Max. And I'm just going to also point out that each of these students very much reflect students that are children that we have worked with and or know. So that is Max. So one of them is, one of our strategies is recognizing the current concerns and seeking support. So one of these things is as a family guardian, just a family member of Max, looking at the different aspects in their life and thinking to themselves, who do I know to ask for help, and who can I, this kind of is a both sides, who can Max go and ask for help, and who as parents can we ask for help. As much as we would love to be the knowledge, have all the knowledge and know everything, we don't, and things are changing all the time. So really teaching Max on, okay, so have you talked to your guidance counselor? Is there a social worker at your school? Is there just a teacher you like? Is there one of your classes that's going really well, and for some reason all your English assignments are in on time, but you cannot get your science or your math ones in on time? Can you go and talk to that English teacher about getting your assignments done in your other course? And exploring all those different things. Do you have a spec ed support teacher or a GLE teacher at the school that they could talk to? a teacher assistant that's at the school that can support. So just really helping Max navigate the different supports that they have at school, maybe outside school, whether it's a tutoring service or Kids Help Phone. We'll talk about other resources that kids can access as well. And really hopefully kind of giving Max different options and identifying different people to talk to. If it's, again, aunt, uncle, mom versus dad on certain things, and that kind of stuff. Maybe some things are better for grandma to answer, or a friend, or sometimes it's just a good friend's child who's maybe a bit older than them or the same age. It could be a friend. The list is endless, but also just giving them that. So I think the second strategy that we kind of thought would really help out Max is just being a role model. So being a role model and showing them how yourself has gone and looked for help from somebody else. Whether it's about parenting or being a family member to someone who identifies differently than you identify, and learning about that, whether it's from that child or from other resources, or learning about it and sharing and letting them know, hey, I didn't know about this. I was telling to my family, I was really excited about hearing the keynote speaker because I want to know more about the Indigenous perspective. So and unfortunately I didn't have the link to it, which I missed it, which is too bad, but something, just modeling curiosity about other people and how I go to find that, and doing that every day, role modeling when you've messed up and what else you can do about that. Also saying, hey, I need my quiet coffee and for 5 minutes in the morning, and I know I could be a better mama when I do that, and I'm a better teacher when I get my coffee. So just, identifying how you take care of yourself, and talk about, that walk really energized me, and just really being a role model and telling them, and just so they have someone to follow. We would kind of say as I do and not as I do, but let's try to do it. I don't know, I might have messed up that expression, but that's just, I think at the end of the day, is good reflection for all the strategies. And we've just shared, I think, just 6, but there's, again, tons out there. Just a good conversation to have, good reminders. And at the end of the day, I like using this as my anchor and going, hold on a second. Am I showing this? Am I showing how I deal with different variables in my day? Am I showing how I handle this, how I ask for help? Am I sharing my emotions and my experiences? If someone asked me what my day was, did I say fine? Right? Does my husband say fine? And we've actually taken, that perspective of going, yeah, we should give more details. We should give answers, show them how someone made me laugh today, let them know who I had lunch with today, and just kind of be that role model. So it's very, very self-reflective, this strategy. So take that with what you will. And I think that's it for our formal case studies and just the strategies that we wanted to talk about today. We do want, again, let's hit up that chat pod. If there's anything maybe you want to share, if one of the stories maybe just resonated with you, or just, and you don't have to be specific at all if you don't want to, whatever you're comfortable with, and maybe a strategy that you're going to take away today, try out, remember, something else we didn't mention. Again, we're just starting the conversation here. Or if, anybody kind of had any questions about any of those scenarios from a perspective of a teacher. Again, we're just speaking from our perspectives as Andrea, the teacher, Jody, the teacher. But this is kind of our time. We want to hear from you.
I see Christina mentioning that, it is hard to find time. The walk doesn't always fit in to the day. So you're right, Christina. And sometimes it's just finding that moment. For me today, as I was dropping my son off at band, and he was questioning whether he was good enough to be in this particular band. And I said, you know what, listen, you're trying something new. And that, again, if it's anxious, it's a little bit of fear. And I said, and then I tried to be a role model and talk to him about, I'm about to do a presentation. I don't know how it's going to go. And I have those same feelings, and you work through them, and you're going to learn from this experience. And so really, you know, finding those short moments when you don't have time for the full walk, it's hard to do, for sure.
I think, Jody, that goes with the not finding time, and that's the hardest one. And, you know, from Jody and I tend to speak with teachers more in this aspect. And I have had a lot of teachers saying, what do you mean you fit in a time for Mind Jar every day and whatnot? And I said, because if we don't, and we go back to that Maslow pyramid, if we don't take time to really support our mental health, and it might look different. I would love to do people, I do share that I meditate. People are like, how do you fit 30 minutes in? I'm like, oh, friends, sometimes it's 2 minutes. But you know, you do make sure you got to schedule it in, just like you would anything else. And the more practicing, if you didn't get it today, that's okay. And just start again tomorrow. And it's just one of those scheduling in, because if we don't, you know, take time to support any of these, either these students we talked about or ourselves, then everything else does kind of, it gets harder. So it is hard to prioritize. Totally get that. The world keeps going, but don't be too hard on yourself. And have some conversation about perfectionism.
And conversations about gaming. And I think this is a hard one for some adults for which to empathize, because we didn't grow up like this. And I was trying to think about it today. I was trying to empathize with my son, and I was realizing, listen, in high school, I spent hours playing the piano, and that was my escape. And maybe it seemed productive, but that was really more my decompression time after school. For my son, that's not what it looks like. And so recognizing that for a lot of children, what they're doing in gaming, it looks different than what we had when we were young. And so we can't, it's not like being in their shoes to really quite understand. Moderation is also a wonderful thing. So it is that is one to work around, but also trying to understand, as has been pointed out, what they're getting from it, because I'm not sure who in the chat pointed out, it is social, and they are getting more from it than simply what maybe are many parents' concerns and guardians' concerns about the potential adrenaline rush, and how do you remove yourself when there can be addictive tendencies, but they're also benefiting somewhat from it. So I'd like the conversations that people are adding to the chat, of going back and forth of the challenges, but also some of the benefits that have been recognized. Yeah, and try to play with them. Yes. It's hard to match their skill sets with the gaming. One of the other strategies that came to mind is self-talk. And I think a lot of students and our children haven't necessarily practiced self-talk in their head or out loud, where they talk themselves through something. They're used to perhaps an adult helping talk them through, but then they should be using that as well. Okay, I'm just going to walk up to that plate, and the first thing I need to do is just get there, pick up my bat, and then I need to take a deep breath before. And so telling them that is a strategy for them to use, that the self-talk is another great one.
So I love that we just keep talking about strategies, and even within the strategies, there's strategies. But I think, and I'm looking at the time, and I want to make sure everyone has a break. Probably we've got, I got to go find out how much brownie batter's all over my kitchen right now. But keep on chatting on the side. I love this support network that's going on. Shelley has her hand up. I think, Shelley, did you want to share something with your microphone quickly?
Yes, actually, thank you very much, Andrea and Jody, for being here. It's really a privilege to be sitting in the same room with you professionals and fellow mothers and parents. I have a pressing question here. I've been searching for answer up and down, in and out. I've been to the paid and unpaid seminars, workshops, Zoom meetings. So questions here. I have 3 kids at these different developmental stages and facing their own challenges. I want to find a good psychotherapist, paid or non-paid, doesn't matter. I want to hear from you guys because you have experience working at a sick kids hospital and have been in the first line dealing with children at TDSB system for over decades. So where is my right channel to find that psychotherapist or social worker, whatever it is? I even been in the Zoom meetings with some psychologists specializing in youth mental health in the States, but they come with different voices and different beliefs. Someone says, it's like getting a family doctor. You need to get your children a psychotherapist and go see them on a regular basis, at least 3 months apart, 6 months apart. And some other specialists are saying, if your kids are acting fine, you know, these depressions, anxieties are norm. Everybody nowadays have it. You don't have to see these doctors. Just like my kids has different family doctors. Some family doctors are very concerned and careful. And someone says, Shelly, what do you worry about? Your kids are perfectly healthy. Why are you so over anxious about these annual checkups? So he's not into the annual checkups. Someone's on my side, even on TDSB, they're promoting these annual checkups. So now I want to hear from Jody and Andrea, or maybe some other parents here who have some expertise in the mental health regular maintenance. I hope I'm at the right place because I've been searching up and down. Thank you. I'm talking too much.
No, not at all. And I don't know if Jody, you want to speak to that first. And I think, Shelly, we all kind of hear you and understand you. I was just going through the chat and it was Spiri that was also talking about finding the unicorn psychiatrist or psychologist.
Exactly, I can.
Yeah. Jody, did you have something that came to mind first that you wanted to talk to on that one, or?
So what the first thing that came to mind is what Andrew and I have more experiences with is within TDSB. And so within TDSB, there's a process that you can pursue either through your teacher, guidance, special education, or the administration, vice principal or principal. And that would be, it's a process of bringing a child to in-school support team, where the educators and administration are thinking through the supports that might need to be put in place. But then there's a school support team that happens, and the parents and guardians or other family members or interpreters, translators, they're all invited. And at that meeting, there is a psychologist and a social worker, and they at the SST, the school support team level, then they discuss what formally can be put into place for a student. It may be a referral to a service. It may be that the psychologist or social worker will give advice to the home school teacher, the homeroom teacher, for in-class support. A variety of things happen at that level. So certainly within TDSB, that would be the process that you would pursue, where you're looking at the school support team meeting and again, approaching guidance, special education, or administration. So there's a few different people that you can ask for that support, and then they will gather to discuss how best to support you and your child. Andrea, I don't know if you have anything to add about that particular process.
And I'm seeing Shelly is far from being alone on that one. And I think just like, we're going to parallel mental health with physical health again. It is one of those things that you might have to shop around for what's going on. And I mean, our kids are growing and changing and developing, and things are changing for them. So who might be right for them right now also may not be the right person to support them in a couple of years or what it is. But just like I will use the example as a chiropractor. I have a chiropractor that I love, and then I know other people who don't like chiropractors, or they've seen a chiropractor or the same one, they weren't the right one for them. So the same goes for a psychologist, as a psychiatrist, a family doctor. So if anything, know that you're not alone in the shopping. To keep it up if you are concerned. I did just kind of fly through while we were chatting there some of the other resources, because we are pretty much at the end of the time and we want to respect everyone's time, but we do have some more resources there. And one slide that I did bring up, because we're talking about the different perspectives and different ideas on what is normal for mental health and what is time for concern or checkup or check-in. And you see the very long list of things that are normal, and we got this list from the Canadian Mental Health Association. What is considered normal for children at the end of the day. If things are more intense than usual, they persist over a long period of time, any of these, things on the left here, and it's interfering with their life. It's interfering with them making friends. It's interfering with their schoolwork. It's interfering with their family relationships and family dynamics. Those are good signs that are not good signs. Those are signs that it is time to ask for help from another professional or shop around. Those are your kids best, that the people that you love, your family best. And if things are concerning, then that's enough of a reason to check with someone. So sometimes you got to keep going. So unfortunately, we can't say call this doctor. Would love to have that magic name and number. But if you've gone through the school system and that hasn't worked, gone through your GP, and that hasn't worked, then getting a referral to somebody else, and most GPs will do that, just saying you want a second opinion or whatnot, and keep going with that. But there's tons of resources in Toronto. We are so fortunate to be in Toronto and have lots of different resources available to us. So keep looking at that. But it is time, so keep sharing on the chat for a minute or two. But it is 12:36, so we're going to wrap it up formally. Again, I'm Andrea. This is Jody. She's awesome. So I feel very privileged to be able to work with Jody. These are emails and our Twitter handles. I have to update my Twitter some, Jody. I'm losing it on the Twitter, but you can reach us there. And we are teachers with Education Community Partnership Program. And I hope you got something out of today. We're so thankful that you all showed up today. It's a Saturday.
Yes, echoing Andrea's, it was really nice to have you join in and be so open and sharing all sorts of ideas, and hopefully we will cross paths again. But thank you so much for attending today, everyone.